$25 is not $100. That is not an opinion. That is basic arithmetic. A 10-year-old could tell you that. And yet, at 8% annual growth, $25 becomes $100 in 18 years. Not through any trick, not through any risk. Through one force that has been available to every person reading this for their entire working life. A force that works whether you pay attention to it or not, whether you understand it or not, and whether you believe in it or not. By the time this video ends, you will understand that force well enough to make one small decision with it, and that decision will be worth more than it looks. James is 43 years old. He earns a steady income, owns a home he is proud of, and considers himself reasonably careful with money. He is not the kind of person who makes large financial mistakes. He does not gamble. He does not buy things he genuinely cannot afford. He simply has a pattern, one so unremarkable, so thoroughly built into the texture of his ordinary days, that he has never once in 22 years thought to examine it. Every morning on his way to work, James stops for a coffee. Most afternoons, the vending machine near his office gets a visit. On the days when nobody organized lunch, he picks something up from the place on the corner. He sends a small gift through an app when a friend has a hard week. Each of these feels like Tuesday. None of them feels like a choice. The total averaged across a full year comes to $25 per day. He has been doing this since he was 21 today. He is only now, on a quiet Tuesday evening at his kitchen table, running the numbers for the first time in his life. I spend way too much time turning financial systems into data you can actually see. If you want to understand how money really works, hit subscribe. Before we get into any numbers at all, let me give you the simplest possible picture of what is actually happening here. Imagine you plant a single fruit tree in your backyard. In the first year, it produces a small handful of fruit. Not impressive, barely worth mentioning. But every year, the fruit from that season becomes part of the tree itself. The tree grows a little bigger. The next season, it produces more fruit. That fruit also becomes part of the tree. By year 20, the very same tree, from the very same original planting, is producing more fruit in a single month than it produced in its entire first 5 years combined. Compound interest works exactly like that tree. Your $25 is the seed. Time is the water. And the only thing the tree asks of you is the decision not to spend the seed before you plant it. Here is the number that makes the title of this video literally true. Money growing at 8% per year, which is roughly what a simple, low-cost investment in the broad stock market has historically returned over long periods of time, doubles approximately every 9 years. Not every month, not every 2 or 3 years, every 9 years. So $25 becomes $50 in 9 years. $50 becomes $100 in another 9 years after that. $100 becomes $200 in the 9 years after that. $200 becomes $400. $400 becomes $800. The tree does not slow down as it matures. It speeds up. And all of this, every doubling, every multiplication, comes from a single $25 seed that was never spent. Pause the video right now and think about one thing you spend roughly $25 on each week that you have never once thought of as a financial decision. Something specific. Something ordinary. Hold it in your mind. We are going to put a real number on it in a few minutes. We call the gap between what $25 feels like in the moment of spending it trivial, inconsequential, not worth a second thought, and what it actually becomes over 18 years of compound growth, the compound perception gap. It is the distance between the price you see on the receipt and the price that compounds silently forward in time without you ever receiving a bill for it. And for most working adults and most seniors, that gap has been open and widening for years. Not because of carelessness, but because no one ever made it visible until now. Most of us know, somewhere in the back of our minds, that small spending adds up over time. We have all heard it. We generally believe it. And we still do it. Because knowing something in your head and feeling it in your gut are two completely different experiences. Researchers who study how people estimate the cost of their own spending habits found that when people guess how much a small, daily habit costs them over many years, they consistently underestimate the real figure by a factor of 3 to 5. Think about what that actually means. It means our natural instinct about small recurring amounts is not slightly wrong. It is wrong by a multiple. And this is not a character flaw or a sign of financial ignorance. It is simply how human brains were built. For a world where money did not compound, where the future was uncertain, and where spending what you had in hand today was often the most sensible available choice. We are running ancient instincts inside a modern financial economy, and the gap between the two quietly costs more than most people ever sit down to calculate. Here is the first force working against James, and very likely against you as well. Think about the last time you paid for something small and felt even a moment of hesitation. Now think about the last time you paid for something small and felt absolutely nothing, say, not a flicker of deliberation, not even a passing awareness that a decision had occurred. For most people, there is a threshold somewhere around $10 or $15 below which spending simply stops registering as a choice. It happens automatically. It is comfortable. It is invisible. It is just Tuesday. The problem is that compound interest has no threshold. It does not set aside the amounts that feel too small to examine. It multiplies every single one of them, the ones you thought about and the ones you did not, with exactly the same patience and exactly the same certainty. So every time James's brain filed $25 under not worth examining, compound interest noted it carefully and kept processing, or in this case was prevented from processing, at 8% per year. For James, this meant 22 years of daily $25 decisions that he cannot fully reconstruct from memory. He remembers the coffees clearly. There was a period in his early 30s when he was particularly devoted to a juice bar near his office. The juice was excellent, and he has very few regrets about that specific chapter of his life. But even the excellent juice was part of a pattern his bank account tracked with considerably more precision than his memory ever did. This is where it gets really interesting, and also, genuinely, a little uncomfortable. Here is the second force. It is not only that small amounts feel unimportant when we spend them, they also feel unimportant when we consider saving them. And this double effect, the same feeling of insignificance operating in both directions simultaneously, is what keeps the compound perception gap open for years, sometimes decades, in the lives of people who are otherwise entirely capable of making good financial decisions. Think about this feeling. If someone offered you $50 today, or $100 in 2 years, most people would take the 50. Even though waiting 2 years doubles the money. Even though the arithmetic strongly favors waiting. We take the 50 because $100 in 2 years feels abstract and distant, while $50 right now feels real. You can hold the 50. You can spend it this afternoon. The future 100 exists only as a promise. Researchers who have studied this pattern found that virtually everyone makes the same trade when the reward feels far away, and that the further away it feels, the more steeply we discount it against what we could have right now. Your brain quietly believes that $1 in the future is worth slightly less than $1 today, even when the arithmetic says otherwise. This is not irrational. It is human. And it is the most expensive habit most of us carry without ever knowing it has a name. This is the invisible force that kept James spending, rather than planting for 22 years. Not laziness, not carelessness, Just a brain doing exactly what brains were designed to do. Choosing the real, immediate, certain thing over the abstract, distant, uncertain one. Every single morning. At a vending machine that was, in this specific psychological respect, considerably better equipped than he was. Here is the third force, the one that turns the full picture into a number large enough to require a moment of genuine stillness. When you invest regularly, it is not one seed that grows. It is a new seed planted every single day. Each seed has its own individual timeline. The seed planted today has 18 years to double twice. The seed planted tomorrow has 17 years and 364 days. Every seed is running on its own compounding clock simultaneously. Think of it as an entire orchard, not a single tree. Every tree planted on a different day. Every tree at a slightly different stage of growth. All of them producing fruit at the same time in the same direction. The daily compounding of a regular investment is not one snowball rolling down a hill. It is an entire hillside of snowballs, all released on consecutive days, all accelerating toward the same destination together. Pause the video here and take 30 seconds. Think about the specific spending habit you identified at the beginning of this video. Estimate its daily cost in an average week. Multiply that by 365 to get the yearly amount. Now imagine that yearly amount invested every year for the next 20 years. Hold the feeling of that number in your mind. We are about to show you James's exact figure, and you should have your own version in your head when we get there. Here are the real numbers, calculated precisely, with nothing softened or rounded in James's favor. James spends $25 per day, 5 days a week, across 50 weeks of the year. In raw cash alone, that adds up to $6,250 per year. If James had redirected half of that daily amount, $12.50 per day, or $260 per month, into a broad market index fund returning 8% annually, starting from age 21 when those habits first formed, the compound total after 22 years would be this: $209,431. James sat with that number for a long moment. Then he sat with it for another one. He had made no dramatic financial errors to arrive at this gap. He had not gambled or borrowed recklessly or ignored any obvious warning. He had simply spent $25 a day, half of which, redirected, would have quietly become $209,000 without requiring any further effort from him at any point. If you are sitting with a number of your own right now, your version of this calculation, and it feels larger than you expected, that feeling is the right response. It is not a verdict. It is not a judgment. It is information. And information is the only place any better decision has ever come from. Here is what that gap looks like on the other side. If James redirects the same $260 per month starting today, at 43 years old, compound growth over his 22 remaining working years produces the identical figure, $209,431. The starting age changes. The outcome does not. Compound interest does not penalize you for the years before you understood it. It simply starts from the moment you give it something to work with. And for a senior with a decade or more of investment horizon ahead, or someone who wants to build something to pass on to family, the orchard is still accepting new trees. The planting season has not closed. Think about which path your daily spending is currently on. Drop your honest answer in the comments. A for mostly spent before you examine it. B for already redirecting some of it deliberately. C for somewhere in between and not yet sure. There is no wrong answer here, only the honest one. This is where most people feel the full weight of the picture most sharply. They see the $200,000 figure. They feel the years already behind them. And they land on a thought that feels like logic. It is too late. The money is spent. and whatever I could redirect now is too small to matter. James had this thought. He sat there with the quiet heaviness of someone who has just seen something clearly for the first time that was there to be seen all along. He almost closed the spreadsheet. What stopped him was a simpler piece of arithmetic. The only scenario in which the next 22 years are identical to the last. 22 years is the decision made right at this moment to leave everything unchanged. Every other decision, even a small one, even a late one, even an imperfect one, produces a different outcome. The gap does not require a dramatic gesture to start closing. It requires a direction. James did not overhaul his life. He kept the morning coffee, and this video would not suggest otherwise, because the coffee was never actually the problem. He looked through 1 month of bank statements and found 3 recurring habits that existed more out of momentum than any genuine enjoyment. Things he had been doing on autopilot long enough that he had stopped noticing whether he wanted them at all. Their combined daily cost was $9.75. He set up one automatic transfer for that exact amount, scheduled for the morning after his payday arrives, before the week has any claim on it, into a broad index fund. $9.75 per day, at 8% annual return, over 22 remaining years, becomes $127,341. He kept everything that genuinely made his daily life better. He simply stopped directing compound interest toward his own inattention and started directing it somewhere else. Now bring this back to you. 3 actions, in order from simplest to most consequential. First, find your doubling number tonight. Open whatever account you currently save or invest in. Find the annual interest rate or return rate it currently earns. Divide 72 by that number. The result is how many years it takes your money to double at that rate. A savings account earning 4.5%, your money doubles every 16 years. A broad market index fund at 8%, every 9 years. That clock is running at this exact moment, on every dollar in every account you hold, whether or not you have ever looked at it. Second, find your unexamined spending this week. Not the spending you chose deliberately. Not the things that genuinely improve your day or your week. Open 1 month of your bank statement and look for the transactions that appear as entries rather than decisions. The ones you do not fully remember making. Total them. Multiply by 12 for the annual figure. Multiply the annual figure by 4 as a rough estimate of its 18-year compound value at 8%. That is your personal compound perception gap, the distance between what that spending looks like on a statement today and what it becomes in silence over time. You needed to see it. Now you have. Third, redirect one fixed amount this week by automation. Not a new budget system, not a complete financial restructuring. One automatic transfer, in an amount small enough that you will not cancel it when the month gets difficult, scheduled for the day after your income arrives, before the week has had time to develop its own ideas about where that money should go. $5 a day, $10. Any amount that sits below the threshold of your daily attention, because that threshold is precisely where compound interest does its most patient and most consequential work. Set it before you close this video. Tomorrow's version of this intention is worth slightly less than today's because of the same principle we have been discussing for the past 15 minutes. You now know how to be smarter than that. Here is what this video has really been about, the deeper thing underneath the arithmetic. Every financial decision you make, every single one, from the largest purchase to the smallest daily habit, has 2 prices. The first price is the one on the receipt. The number you can see, the amount that leaves your account, the cost you feel in the moment of spending. The second price is invisible. It is what that same amount would have become if it had been invested instead, compounding forward through time at whatever rate your account earns. You are always paying both prices simultaneously. Every time you spend, you pay the receipt price in cash and the compound price in future wealth. Every time you invest, you pay the receipt price in present convenience and receive the compound price in future freedom. Most people go through their entire financial lives reading only the first price. They check the receipt. They check the balance. They budget the visible amounts. And the second price runs silently in the background, adding up or not adding up, building or not building, year after year for decades. James is still at that kitchen table. The coffee is still in the plan for tomorrow. His daily life looks almost identical to what it was before that Tuesday evening. The only thing that changed is the way he reads a financial decision now. When he considers spending something, anything regardless of size, he has started asking himself not just what it costs today, but what it costs in the currency of future compound growth. Two prices. Always two prices. The receipt and the future. He had been reading one of them for his entire adult life. He reads both of them now. And that shift in how he sees money, not his income, not his savings rate, not his portfolio selection, but simply the lens through which he reads every financial decision going forward, is worth more than any specific amount he redirects. Because it applies to every choice he will ever make from this point on. He is not wealthy. He is not rescued. He is something more durable than both. He is informed. And an informed decision made today, even a small one, even a late one, will always produce a different future than the one that comes from not making it at all. Every financial decision has two prices. The one you can see today and the one that compounds quietly into your future. And now you know how to read both of them.